I've explored the entire universe, all of Edge of Eternities, both the main set and the new to Magic cards from the 2 Commander precons, and I've picked out my 42 favorite cards, my personal buy list. Now, it's not quite time to buy Edge of Eternity singles unless the price is something that you are willing to pay. It is time to buy Tarkir Dragonstorm, so if you want to see a video full of cards that I think are actually great pickups right now, go check out my video from 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, throw me on your second monitor. Let's talk about my buy list from Edge of Eternities, and I'd love to hear about yours. Talk to you about it down in the comments. Hey, if you live on the West Coast and or you're just looking for some cool Magic events for the rest of the year, I've got 3 that I want to tell you about. LDXP Phoenix, Command Fest Tacoma, and LVO 2025 are going to offer Magic fans some of the coolest opportunities for the rest of the year to attend conventions and get involved with the community. Each of these events offer a ton of opportunities for Magic fans to participate in different Commander and side events like Secret Lair Sealed Series, CEDH events, 20K plus main events at each of these. And you heard me right, LVO in 2025 in Las Vegas, Nevada, the largest minis convention in the US, that's expanded to include Magic the Gathering and other TCGs this year. So if you're in or around Phoenix, Arizona from August 22 through 24, if you're in Tacoma, Washington from October 31st through November 2nd, or you're in Las Vegas October 3rd for LVO 2025, go check out the link in the description. That's going to have all the information you need to know about all 3 events with tickets, event schedules, and updates. A lot of the cards from the 2 Commander precons were very specific around lands, graveyard lands, and sacrifice strategy for the Jund deck. And then the Artifacts deck was very specifically around +1 counters, artifacts, and proliferate. What that means is I found 3 cards in the entire Commander set that I think are going to be applicable to wider decks and will be good pickups to put in your binder and have for future deck upgrades. The first of which is Uthros Research Craft, a blue and 2 for a 0/8 spacecraft. It's got Station, which is tapping another creature you control to put charge counters on this equal to its power. That's only at sorcery speed, and you can do it with creatures that don't have haste because the ability is coming from the research craft from the spacecraft, not from the creature itself. At 3+ counters, it says whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card and put a charge counter on it. And whenever it's got 12 or more counters on it, it gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. There's a lot of artifact token decks running around, clues, food, treasure, and if you're in blue, this card plays perfectly with that. 3+, every time you're casting an artifact, you're drawing a card straight up. That doesn't have that once per turn clause on it that we're so used to seeing nowadays. It's a really strong card. People are building it into Breya, Ethereum Shaper, Mendicant Core, Guidelight if you built that commander from Aetherdrift, and both Urzas that get played most, Urza Lord High Artificer and Urza Chief Artificer, both decks are really liking Uthros Research Craft. Depth Shaker Titan is a 2-red 5 other 5/5. When it enters, any number of target non-creature artifacts you control become 3/3 artifact creatures. You sack them at the beginning of the next end step, but it also gives each artifact creature you control melee, trample, and haste. So mostly things are minimum going to be attacking as 4/4s because you're probably going to be attacking at least one opponent if you play this. Depth Shaker Titan is a finisher. This is a finisher for decks where you are playing a lot of artifacts onto the battlefield. Dr. Eggman decks, really loving this one as a finisher. Rocco Street Chef, you're making a ton of food tokens. It makes sense. Also, Breya Ethereum Shaper, that makes sense that Depth Shaker Titan would want to be in there as well. This is taking all of your mana rocks, all of your food, clues, treasures, any of your utility artifact tokens, turning them into 3/3s, giving them trample, haste, and making it so that each opponent you attack, it's getting an additional +1. This is how you finish the game in artifact decks that have red in them. I've won games already with Depth Shaker Titan, and so I know that you're going to want to grab a copy of this when it gets to its cheapest. Surge Conductor is a 3-mana 3/2 that says whenever another non-token artifact you control enters, proliferate. This card's automatically finding a home in any of the energy decks that have come out over the past few years, especially the ones that run artifacts already. You really need to be running artifacts to take full advantage of Surge Conductor, but there are plenty of decks running different types of counters, be it +1/+1, be it energy, that have artifact sub-themes. And so Surge Conductor, I think, is going to have wider applicability. Obviously, any energy deck, because you can proliferate your own energy counters. Zabaz the Glimmer Wasp, surprisingly, we're getting +1 counters on our artifact commander. Surge Conductor loves that. Optimus Prime, Hero, also really loving it. Artifacts, Atraxa Praetor's Voice, that are artifacts based. All of these decks are really loving that every single time the artifact enters, non-token, but artifact enters the battlefield, you're automatically getting to proliferate. This card goes crazy. Getting into the main set, Anti-Causal Vestige is a 6-mana 7/5. When it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card. Then you can put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand straight onto the battlefield tapped. And it's got a warp of 4, meaning you can do this on 4 mana and then it goes away and you can recast it for 6 later on. Anti-Causal Vestige is automatically going into my Ulaleg deck, obviously. I really want this in my Eldrazi deck. If you're playing Zuladoc, this is obviously going in there as well. Haragast decks are putting this in there quite a bit. And Brago King Eternal. Blink decks. Decks that can warp this in, figure out a way to blink it, get rid of all the warp stuff so it just stays on the battlefield, and then just continuously blink it whenever they want, whenever they can, to get those free permanents onto the battlefield. I've also seen it playing really well in Eshki Teamer's Roar decks. You're playing it for 4 with that warp ability, but it does say you may cast this card from your hand, and Eshki Teamer's Roar wants to see you cast creature spells, particularly creature spells with big power. Eshki Teamer's Roar loves Anti-Causal Vestige. Very strange flavor inclusion, but good mechanical inclusion. Cosmogrand Zenith is a white and 2 for a 2/4 human soldier. Says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you can choose one. Either create 2 1/1s or put a +1 counter on each creature you control. This card goes bonkers for Ghost Sideways decks. Cards like Myrel, Shield of Argive, if you're running this as your commander, you're going wide with your commander, you're putting +1 counters on it with Cosmogrand Zenith, or you're just contributing to your go wide army. Decks like Caesar, Legion's Emperor, or Eowyn, Shield Maiden, that want to see humans or just creature tokens on the battlefield as much as is humanly possible. Miss Bumbleflower is kind of where I'm interested in taking this card and seeing if it plays well there. More creatures for me to put counters on with Miss Bumbleflower, and more counters for my creatures. That deck has 40 creatures, and at various times it's had more. Cosmogrand Zenith, any place there's a bunch of creatures, any place there's token creatures, where you're going wide, Cosmogrand Zenith wants to be. Exalted Sunborn is 2 white, 3 other for a 4/5 Angel Wizard. It's got flying, it's got lifelink, and it says if 1 or more tokens will be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Have you ever seen that anywhere? And it's also got a warp of 2, so you can, again, cast it for 2. It's on for that turn, and then it goes away, and you can recast it later for its full mana cost. Y'all, how many decks that have tokens does this want to go in? Xenia, Valley's Voice, creating token copies of the creatures you play. Balin the Haymaker, a deck that is absolutely filled to the brim with different types of tokens. Zergo Stormrender, Marnius Calgar, Caesar, Legion's Emperor. All of these decks, so many decks that will be printed in the coming years. Make sure that you grab a copy of Exalted Sunborn from this set when it's time, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so that I can tell you when it is time to go buy singles of this set. Halia Guided by Light is a white and 2 for a 3/3 human soldier. Says whenever Halia or another creature or artifact you control enters, you gain a life. That's awesome that it happens every single time, and it's not restricted to non-token creatures or non-token artifacts. Any creature, any artifact entering as many times as it can happen, that's going to gain you a life. Then at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if you've gained 3 or more life this turn, and it can warp for 1. I don't think the warp on these are going to have a ton of applicability in Commander. I think that's more of a standard mechanic, but we'll see. Some places it is applicable. Halia at 3 mana, tons of utility on this card. Lots of decks, Frodo and Sam, Adventurous Hobbit and Loyal Attendant, they love the life gain and the things entering, and there's foods and there's creatures. Halia's kind of interacting with all of it, and at the end of the day she's going to give you a card draw if you've gained 3 or more life this turn, which isn't that difficult to do. Aloro, Ageless Aesthetic, automatic inclusion in there. Karlov of the Ghost Council, Beator's Ancestor's Voice, Heliod Suncrowned, any of the life gain archetypes, no matter from which direction you're approaching it, I think Halia Guided by Light is going to play pretty well in there. For all my aura lovers out there, I've got Hard Light Containment. 1 white enchant artifact you control. When this aura enters, exile target creature an opponent controls until this aura leaves the battlefield, and the enchanted permanent has ward 1. I love a 1 mana exile, even if it can only go on an artifact we control. It's a rare from the set that already has homes in decks like Alela, Artful Provocateur, Shurikai, Genesis Engine. All of these have to do with artifacts already being on the battlefield. We put the aura on there, and it's a 1 mana removal. And a commander that's an artifact that has white in its color identity definitely needs a look, because you're pretty much going to guarantee yourself, oh, ward 1 on my commander, that's not bad. On top of, I get to exile their thing. Hell yeah, I'm always going to have an artifact to enchant because my commander's an artifact. The Saraima is one of the first cards that we saw for the set, but I want a copy of it for my Dahada deck in particular. 2 white, 1 other for a 5/5 spacecraft. When it enters, you search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand. Excellente. It's got station, and when you've got 7 counters on it, other tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible. Joda the Unifier, I mean, obviously, I'm putting it into Dahada Binder of Wills because with that -3, we can reveal any number of legend cards from among them and put them into our hand. And when we cast the Sarima, we get to go get a legend into our hand. It's great tutor. Rip, Spawn, Hunter. I've also seen this popping up in Mendicant core decks as well. I love a tutor that also has upside and also can be a flying attacker. It's kind of crazy. Consult the star charts made me go look up a card called Drawn from Dreams that's pretty good, but this one is a 1 blue, 1 other instant with a kicker of 1 blue, 1 other. It says, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of lands you control. Put 1 of those cards into your hand. If this spell was kicked, put 2 of those cards into your hand instead. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I love this card. This is such good card draw. I know you're not drawing the card or cards depending on if you kick it, but having a 2 mana versatile spell that can ramp up into a 4 mana spell and get you an extra card, and you look down according to how many lands you have on the battlefield. That's so strong for Commander. Simic landfall ramp decks are looking at this card and salivating. I love how this scales up over the course of a game. You can play this early, you can play this late. Go get what you need from the top X cards of your library. Moonlit Meditation is a 1 blue, 2 other aura. Second aura on the list here today. Enchant artifact or creature you control, and the first time you would create 1 or more tokens each turn, you may instead create that many tokens that are copies of the enchanted permanent. Lots of token love in this set. Zinnia Valley's Voice is obviously going to want this. You're making tokens off of your creatures. You can just keep copying the same artifact or creature. You have decks like Shurikai, Genesis Engine, Brutaclad, Telcore Engineer that are automatically creating tokens out of the command zone. Decks like Marnius Calgar, Brea, Ethereum Shaper. And so you are guaranteeing that you're going to be making tokens because that's an effect out of the command zone. And we just put this on whatever our best thing is that we want to copy that's not legendary, so we don't have to sack them unless we just want the entrance of that legendary thing. And we're fine with sacking the thing because the entrance ability is so good. Moonlit Meditation, very strong. I put Quantum Riddler on my list before it started popping off like crazy in standard and other formats. This card's over 20 bucks at this point when I'm making this video as a mythic, which again helps me reiterate, not the time to buy these necessarily. I'll tell you in a couple of months when it is time to buy these. Make sure you're subscribed. Look for the videos with the purple border. Quantum Riddler is a 5 mana 4/6. It's got flying. Says whenever this creature enters, draw a card. As long as you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, if you would draw 1 or more cards, you draw that many cards plus 1 instead, and it's got a warp of 2. It's a strong creature in and of itself. You're entering, you're drawing a card. It's got good avoidance, it's got a good butt, it can warp, and it lets you draw extra cards. I'm seeing it run in Obeka Brute Chronologist decks. Obeka, by the way, really good with the warp ability in general, and so a lot of the warp ability cards that are strong for Commander that are in blue, black, and red are showing up over there because you don't have to return it. We're done with the turn. We're moving on from the turn with Obeka's activated ability. It's popping up in Zinnia Valley's Voice decks and Unesh Cryosphinx Sovereign decks because it itself is a Sphinx. It's also showing up in decks like Y'shtola Rule, more end step, exile step, you know, bouncing kind of abilities when it enters, you're drawing a card. So it's good in blink decks as well. Overall, just a strong creature, especially in card draw decks. It's something that I want in my Bumbleflower deck. I looked up to my commander deck shelf, even though you don't know that that's up there. I wanted it in my Bumbleflower deck because my Bumbleflower deck is sitting right up there. That's why I put it on this list, and I have a feeling it's going to have other play as well. Scour for Scrap is one of the uncommons that I put on the list. A blue and 3 for an instant speed. Choose one or both. Search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, or return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. This value at instant speed seems nuts. You go late game, get an artifact back, and go get an artifact from your library, your best one that you haven't seen yet. I mean, powerful decks want this. Urza, Lord High Artificer, obviously. Kennen, Bonder Prodigy. Might want to take a look at this card. You're having non-land permanents tapped for mana in that deck. Probably artifacts. Go search for one. Go return one. Dr. Eggman, Mendicant Core. Lots of artifact love in this set, and this uncommon, I think, is really going to find some homes in strong artifact decks. Alpharel, Stone Chosen is 2 black, 3 other for a 3/3 human cleric. It's got a ward of discard a card at random. So basically, Alpharel is not getting targeted because nobody wants to do that. And Alpharel says whenever it attacks, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, defending player loses half their life rounded up. Holy moly. You definitely want to make Alpharel unblockable to get him through, but it feels like a fun legend. I'm going to put it in Dahada because Dahada can give it indestructible. And lifelink to boot. We can have it attack with vigilance, lifelink indestructible with Dahada, and on the attack, it's wiping out half their life as long as something left the battlefield. And Dahada makes treasures, so all I gotta do is have a non-land permanent, aka a treasure token, leave the battlefield, and Alpharel is attacking for crazy amounts. This is the kind of creature that I want to reanimate and give indestructible. I specifically want this for my Dahada deck. Let me know if you can find another home for it, but I saw this and was just like, Dahada. Elegy Acolyte is a 2 black, 2 other 4/4 with lifelink. Says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card, lose a life. And at the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. Zergo Stormrender. Ring any bells? That commander just printed in Dragonstorm Tarkir 8 sets and 4 years ago. Zergo Stormrender, Caesar Legion's Emperor, any of these decks that are like Mardu or at least have black and they're token creating, sort of attacking, aggressive decks, that's where this is going to have a home. Rev, Tithe Extractor, Gonti Night Minister. These are the decks that are running this. Servandum, Sunstar Exemplar, that's a new commander that this is popping up in a lot of decks of. You've got a commander that's about attacking, about getting bigger, and then possibly dying or going into exile. Elegy Acolyte's going to be drawing you cards and creating tokens alongside that. Strong card for 4 mana. I can't wait to test this one out. It's absolutely going into Zergo Stormrender immediately. So Thera the Super Void is the big headliner card from this set. 2 black, 2 other for a legendary enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. Holy moly, that is strong. This is a legend, so I want it for my Dahada deck. Shocker, Danunch. He said he wants a card for his Dahada deck. Amazing. At the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creatures, you sacrifice Sothera, then put a creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters. It's just power. This is just strength. This is just a lot. It's legendary. Enchantment decks are really going to love this. There was that run of enchantment decks that had black included, like a Nixthia, Hand of Erebos a few years back. This card automatically going in those decks. But then aristocrat stuff, Teysa Karlov, anything that has to do with blinking or exile, Ketramos the New Dawn, Braid's Arisen Nightmare. There's lots of places where this is going to find a home. Umbral Collar Zealot is an uncommon on the list. I put it on here because it's an infinite sack outlet. There's a ton of infinite sack outlets in the history of Commander. If you've been playing a long time, you've got some. If you haven't been playing a while, this is a great pickup. There's a lot of decks that'll want just an instant speed, no resources required sacrifice outlet that you can respond to or get your combo going at instant speed, something. Umbral Collar Zealot is going to be good for that. It's going to be cheap to pick up. It's an uncommon. It's going to be draft chaff for a lot of people. You might want to grab yourself a copy for your decks that want that instant speed sack outlet. This is going to be a cheap one. 0 Point Ballad is a black and X. It's a sorcery that says destroy all creatures with toughness X or less. You lose X life, and if X is 6 or more, you return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. I'm counting this as a 7 mana spell. I like 7 mana spell. It's going to destroy basically everything. You're going to lose 6 life, and you're going to get to put a creature card onto your battlefield that was put into a graveyard this way. It's a fun board wipe. It's a 7 mana board wipe for everything that's 6 toughness or less, and you get something back. The best thing that was on the battlefield just comes right back to your battlefield. It's kind of sweet. Pain for All is a red aura in this set. 1 red, 2 other enchant creature you control. When this aura enters, enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target, and whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. There's a little card called Dawnsire Sunstar Dreadnought that we're going to talk about later in the video, but that thing says whenever you attack, it deals 100 damage to up to 1 target creature. Put Pain for All on your creature, target it with your own Dawnsire, 100 to each opponent. You've probably won the game. This is just a fun aura that I think is going to create some wacky situations, and I definitely want to grab a copy of it. If you're somebody who's already running Weta, Trainer Prodigy, Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid, or decks like Wolverine, or even Marika Brutal Gladiator, Pain for All is going to have a place in your deck because you're already trying to throw all the damage around everywhere you can. Weapons Manufacturing is the second red card on my list. It's an enchantment for 2 that says whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, create a colorless artifact token named Munitions. When this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 to any target. Run this with KCI. Have your Croc Clan Ironworks on the battlefield, casting artifacts. Non-tokens enter, you're creating munitions, you sack those, deal 2 to an opponent. I just think that Weapons Manufacturing is going to lend itself to a lot of combo finishy stuff for artifact decks, and so I want to grab a copy because I think that that would be very fun to be creating munitions and then just throw everything into the furnace and blow everybody up. The third and final red card I have from the main set in this list is Weft Stalker Ardent. A red and 2 for a 2/3 Drix Artificer. Says whenever another creature or artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. There's a lot of redundancy on this effect at this point. That is the type of card that you want to see alongside stuff like Reckless Fireweaver, alongside stuff like Impact Tremors, alongside stuff like Perforos. Any deck that is already running those is going to want a copy of this uncommon. Get yourself a foil. It's not going to be that hard to find it pretty early on. Most likely, that would be one that's going to be a cheaper pickup. Look for the draft chaff. Look for the people that are like, yeah, sure, you can have this foil Weft Stalker. I don't care. But any deck that's already running stuff like Perforos, stuff like Goblin Bombardment, stuff like Impact Tremors, Weft Stalker Ardent is just more juice in that deck. On to the green cards. We'll start with Bioengineered Future. 2 green, 1 other for an enchantment that says when it enters, you create a lander token, and a lander token is a artifact that sacrifices for 2 mana to search your library for a basic land and put it on the battlefield tapped. It says each creature you control enters with an additional +1 counter on it for each land that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. Most recently, Choco Seeker of Paradise has been a fantastic landfall commander. Hearthhole Zarl, that precon World Shaper, has been fantastic for landfall. This card definitely has a home in that deck. The Necro Bloom, Bristly Bill, Omnath, Tevel, Zimone, AC. I mean, it's like the list is just so deep of landfall decks that want this card because they're putting 2, 3, 4 lands onto the battlefield every turn, and their creatures are entering, and they're enormous. Very cool enchantment that I'm definitely getting for quite a few green decks. Famished World Sire's a big old fatty to end the game in these land recursion-y, world shapery style decks. 3 green, 5 other. For Leviathan, it's a 0/0. It's got Ward 3, and it's got Devour Land 3, which is as this creature enters, you can sacrifice any number of lands, and it enters with 3 times that many +1 counters on it. When this creature enters, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the creature's power. Put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. You can just dig into your library so deep with this card, where X is the creature's power, not X is how many lands you sacrificed. You're getting 3 counters for every land that you sacrifice. You get to dig down 3 cards. and get those right onto the battlefield tapped. 8 mana, that's nothing for decks like this. Famished World Sire speaks to me on a personal level. This is the exact kind of card that I personally love to run, and it 100% needs to be a pickup of yours if you got the World Shaper precon with Hearthhole and Zarl. Frenzied Baloth is a 2-green 3/2 beast. It says it can't be countered. It's got trample and haste, and then the text that I really love. Creature spells you control can't be countered. That's pretty good. I really love combat damage can't be prevented. I'm tired of getting fogged. I'm tired of getting ink shielded. Frenzied Baloth says, nah, we're not going to do that anymore. The combat damage is going through. Try to play your constant mists. Hearthhole the World Seed. It's not going to work. I've got Frenzied Baloth. All of my combat damage is going through. It can't be prevented. In fact, nobody's can be prevented. In fact, all creature spells that I cast can't be countered. What are you going to do now, control player? Sorry, I turn things sideways for a living. This kind of card makes me happy. Those kind of cards make me sad. And this kind of card turns off those kind of cards. Icetail Explorer is a 2-green 2-other 2/4 insect scout. Says you can play an additional land on each of your turns. You can play lands from your graveyard, and whenever a land you control enters, you mill a card. So you just get to keep your graveyard full. This card does everything. This card goes where Crucible of Worlds goes. This card goes where Exploration goes. In fact, it's kind of like Crucible of Worlds and Exploration had a kid and it was a bug. Icetail Explorer is the most played card from this set in Commander so far. This is the card that the most online brewers have built into Commander decks so far from the entire set. Icetail Explorer. It's a good card though, so you definitely want to grab a copy when it's time. Anywhere you're running Crucible of Worlds, this card wants to also appear. Decks like Tevel, the Balanced Scale, the Necro Bloom, Lumra, and the Gitrog Monster, Lord Windgrace, decks that have lands going to the graveyard a lot, and you want to get those back and sort of like churn through them. Get them onto the battlefield, back into the graveyard, back onto the battlefield, and so forth. Loading Zone is a green and 3 for an enchantment that says if one or more counters would be put on a creature, spacecraft, or planet you control, twice that many of each of those counters are put on it instead. The spacecraft and planet parts of this are irrelevant unless they're not. This is mostly going to be a +1 counters deck card. This is going into my Bumbleflower deck immediately. Bristly Bill players are already frothing over this one. Zaxara the Exemplary, if you've got that deck, it's time to dust it off and get it going again. Magus Lucia Kane, I just played against this, one of the patrons decks on Patron Game Night. Make sure you're part of the Patreon if you want to play Commander with us every Thursday. Atraxa, Praetor's Voice, Shalai, and Halard. There's a lot of decks that have to do with +1 counters. Me personally, mine is Miss Bumbleflower. It's 100% going in there. Notable too that it can also warp for 1 mana. You can play it early, do some other stuff, get some counters on, and then cast it later. That's relevant with Miss Bumbleflower, which is another reason I really like it, but could also be playable in decks where you're trying to cast multiple spells in a turn. You know, you can warp it for 1 mana. It is a spell cast still, so that can count and kind of help you with your storm count if you need that. Mightform Harmonizer is a 2-green 2-other 4/4 insect druid with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the power of target creature you control until end of turn. Mightform Harmonizer is about punching, and it's about punching hard. Tifa Lockhart is like, hey, that's my insect friend. Zask decks, Tevel decks, Omnath decks, Locus of Creation, Bristly Bill, Spinesower, any of these decks that have to do with attacking and landfall, the ability to drop multiple lands onto the battlefield in a turn, merits an inclusion of Mightform Harmonizer because you're gonna get punchy real fast when you're doubling and then doubling again. And if it's a landfall deck, you're minimum able to play 2 lands per turn or get double landfall per turn, or the deck's not performing. Another 4-mana green card that I want to pick up from this set is Ouroboros. It's a roid, man. 2 green, 2 other, 1/3 plant worm. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1 counters on each creature you control where X is this creature's power. This is going in Bumbleflower. You start growing Ouroboros' power with +1 counters. It's putting more +1 counters on each creature you control. It's the beginning of combat, so you can play this in main phase 1 and immediately start getting its effects. It's kind of a crazy card. This one is one of the mythics that absolutely blew me away in the set, and I know that it's got a lot of homes. The Tidus and Yuna Precon from Final Fantasy that just came out. This automatically goes in there. This is such a good inclusion in there. People that were building Genova, Ancient Calamity, automatically goes in there. Azuri, Claw of Progress, Bristly Bill. It's crazy how many good cards from this set there are for Bristly Bill mono green commander decks. Getting into our gold cards, I really like Biotech Specialist. This is a green and a red for a 1/3 Insect Scientist. When this creature enters, you create a lander, which is that artifact token to tap it, sack it, go get a basic land onto the battlefield tapped. And it says whenever you sack an artifact, this creature deals 2 damage to target opponent. I feel like this goes in treasure decks. Decks like Jolene the Plunder Queen or Corvold, Fey Cursed King, anytime you are sacrificing things, anytime you're making treasures that you can sacrifice. You can also look at decks like Roxanne, Starfall Savant, or Rocco, Street Chef. Anything that you can sack, 2 damage to target opponent. Biotech Specialist is very strong, and I think is going to end up being sort of a win con in some of these types of decks. If you can get an insane amount of treasures all onto the battlefield at once. With something like Brass's Bounty, get Biotech Specialist on the battlefield, sack them all. That's just so easy to nuke an opponent. 10 damage for 5 treasures sacked once you've got Biotech Specialist out. Bueno. Diadrene Synthesis Amalgam is a strange little green-white creature here, but I really like it. A white and a green and X for a trampling 0/1 construct. It says it enters with a number of +1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. I like creatures that scale up as commanders. It has been a while. You know, you've got cards like Prosh, where it was designed as a scaling commandery type experience where you're getting counters for the amount of mana spent to cast it, knowing that the amount of mana spent to cast it's going to go up because of taxes. Diadrene speaks to me in that way. It's like, okay, cool. At the very least, I'm getting rewarded for recasting this because it's going to be a little bit bigger when it comes back from the command zone again. So it enters with a number of +1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. And whenever you attack, you can remove a +1 counter from each of 2 creatures you control. If you do, draw a card, create a 2/2 robot. I want to put it in my Bumbleflower deck. Obviously, that's my +1 counter deck. It's got a home in yours most likely if green-white is in the color identity of your +1 counter deck. I think that the ability to just remove 1 counter from 2 creatures, get another creature that counters can go on, and you get to draw a card. And if you want to build it as your commander, it's got that scaling tax reward thing that I think is pretty cool. Pinnacle Emissary is a 1 red, 1 blue, 1 other 3/3 robot. Says whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 with flying that says this token can block only creatures with flying. That doesn't matter. We're creating 1/1 flyers whenever we cast artifacts. This is awesome. There are so many homes for this card. Most recently, Dr. Eggman decks are really loving it. Brea Ethereum Shaper decks, obviously. Joyra, Weatherlight Captain, Gimbal, Gremlin Prodigy. Any of these that have to do with casting artifacts that have blue and red, you want to give a look to this one. Creating 1/1s every single time. I don't care if they can only block creatures with flying. This is a card that I really want to run. Sammy Wildcat Captain is a white, a red, and 4 for a 4/4 human artificer rogue with double strike and vigilance that says spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. I don't necessarily like Sammy as a commander. 6 mana with no way to reduce seems pretty rough, especially with no built-in protection in today's commander meta. However, in the 99 of an equipment deck, I'm going to put this in my cloud deck because spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. We're already able to maybe dump some spells really cheap, maybe even free if they are artifacts, and we've got enough artifacts on the battlefield. But then it's a double striking vigilant creature to suit up. I think it could be cool. This might end up being one of those things that's just too slow because it's 6 mana. It had to be where it is on as far as mana cost goes just because of the power level of it. But it is a piece that I'm interested in trying in the decks that I'm going to build up a good affinity for artifacts where I'll want to hand Sammy a sword and say, all right, get attacking. Tanic Memorial Ensign is here to be another uncommon on the list. This one's just so good, though. A green, a red, and 1 for a 2/4 Kavu pilot that says whenever a land you control enters, Tanic deals 1 damage to each opponent. And if this is the second time it's resolved this turn, you draw a card. Then it can just keep happening past there. You only draw the 1 card on the second time it happens, but every single land is a damage to each opponent. Scapeshift nukes all of your opponents, basically. Tanic is fantastic in a landfall deck. You're running this alongside cards like Sabo Tender. Whenever the lands are entering, you're dealing more damage. Alongside cards like Traveling Chocobo that's letting you play extra lands. If you're running it in the 99, you're putting it in Omnath. Either one, Locus of Creation or Locus of Rage. Lord Windgrace, Hazazon, Shaper of Sand. Flubs the Fool decks kind of love this. Landfall, 1 damage to each opponent. Very strong uncommon. Dawnsire's Sunstar Dreadnought is just a fun machine. I'm ready to have this 5 mana 2020 spacecraft dealing 100 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker when it attacks with 10 or more station counters on it, so that I can nuke creatures or combine it with something like Pain for All and just create a hilarious situation that makes everybody laugh. The first time I saw this, I was like, oh my god, we've got Star Destroyers in Magic the Gathering. I just love this card. On a personal level, this very much speaks to me, what I like in media. And so Dawnstar Sunstar Dreadnought, Dawnsire Sunstar Dreadnought, I can say words, is one of the cards I'm definitely picking up. Don't forget, this can be your commander now because it can become a creature, but if you're looking for a deck to slot it into, it works really well in Weta, Trainer Prodigy decks, Bellow, Bard of the Brambles, turn it into a creature, start attacking, it's ridiculous. Dr. Eggman, Atraxa, anything that has to do with artifacts or counters, obviously, it's going to find a home in there. And then vehicle stuff like Shorkai, Genesis Engine, any of those are really, I think, going to love Spacecraft because it's sort of the same mechanic, though it's not exactly the same. The Dominion Bracelet is here to cause some salt. 2 mana legendary artifact. I want to put it in my Lara Croft deck, or I want to put it in Dahada. It's got an equip of 1, and it says equip creature gets +1/+1, very tame, and has 15. Exile the Dominion Bracelet. You control target opponent during their next turn. This ability costs X less to activate, where X is this creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery. Also want to try it in Cloud. I'm very frequently growing Cloud's power well beyond even 7. This is an easy thing to activate, I think, and it's an equipment that plays for 2 and equips for 1. Yes, the activated ability here is an insane cost, but we can reduce it, we can make it happen, and we can make the salt flow. What's not to love about the End Stone? 7 mana legendary artifact. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card. Whenever you do things, get more cool things. Enjoy the End Stone. And at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total, rounded up. Colorless decks are really going to love this. Artifact decks that can cheat it out are really going to love this. But I've also seen Tevel Arbiter of Virtue decks using this to great effect. You're casting a spell, you're losing life equal to its mana value, and all your spells have Delve with this commander. And so going back up is basically how you're looking at this. You're going back up to 20. When you just delve all your stuff out of your library, that could work. Also, Bellow, Bard of the Brambles is another card for that deck that I think people are really going to enjoy. I've talked about the Eternity Elevator at length on the channel in different shorts and videos, but this 5 mana legendary artifact is something I really love. Tap to add 3 mana straight up, and once it's got 20 counters on it, it adds X of any one color where X is the number of charge counters on it. So it's tapping for 20 mana plus after that. It's just a big, silly, legendary artifact that is eventually going to tap for a ton of mana, and I get to tell my little story about how much I love the Old Man's War series and how there's a space elevator in that series, and how this isn't really probably a direct correlation or a shout out to that. There's a lot of space elevators in space media, but the Eternity Elevator is cool to me, and I like it, okay? I like it. I want to get a copy of it. Just like I want a copy of Extinguisher Battleship. This big spaceship stuff speaks to me. 8 mana for eventually a 10/10 flying trample. Just got to get 5 counters on it. That doesn't seem that difficult. 8 seems tough, but we can get there. When it enters, you get to destroy target non-creature permanent. That seems worth it. Then it deals 4 to each creature. Also seems worth it. You want a big creature on the battlefield, something 5 butt or heavier, so that you can start pumping this thing up with counters and turn it into a 10/10 flying trampling threat soon. But a destruction thing that also wipes most creatures off the battlefield, even for 8 mana. It's colorless. We can reduce this. We can cheat it onto the battlefield. I really love Extinguisher Battleship. Duretti Scrap Savant decks are building this in there a lot, and Imskir Iron Eater decks are actually using this a lot as well. equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value is how much damage you're doing when you activate Imskur's bottom ability there and sack an artifact. So 8 is pretty notable. Adagio Windswept Bastion is a planet land. It enters tapped and taps for a white. It can station, so you can add counters to it by tapping your creatures. And once you're at 12 plus, you've got this ability. It's 1 white, 3 other to create a token that's a copy of target artifact or enchantment you control, except it's legendary and activate only as a sorcery, so that you can't use it over and over again on the same artifact or enchantment. I'm assuming is why that clause is on there. The same kind of decks that we've been talking about this entire video are getting upgraded by this card. Mendicant Core, Brea, Ethereum Shaper, Shorakai, Urza Chief Artificer, anything that can proliferate like Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. This one I think is strong in relation to the rest of the cycle here. I don't believe in all of them, but 12 doesn't seem that difficult to get to for most decks, really, even if it's not a proliferate deck. And there's a lot of decks running artifacts and enchantments that copying would absolutely get bonkers. So I think Adagio is going to have some homes. I think the same of Avendo Waking Haven. This is not Gaia's Cradle, but it's close. It's what we're going to get in 2025, and stationing it up for 12 to Gaia's Cradle green mana for each creature you control. The right deck really wants this and can really take advantage of it. The exact same thing with Uthros Titanic Godcore. Those are the 3 of the cycle that I believe the most in. This one is a Tolarian Academy, kind of, once you get 12 counters on it. I hate that these enter tapped. Uthros, Adagio, and Avendo all entering tapped is a big bummer, but the abilities are strong enough and the 12 is doable enough that I think they will see play. And then, of course, the Shocklands. This will be the big call out for purchases on this set. These cards are going to get down cheap. I'm really hoping to pick up a bunch of Shocklands around $5 with this set. I got yelled at for saying that they might get down to $5, but we'll see. These base copies of Watery Grave, Stomping Ground, Sacred Foundry, Godless Shrine, and Breeding Pool over the next 6 months are going to fall as people open this set, and it's going to be the best time that I've ever seen since I played Magic the Gathering to pick these shocks up at an affordable price for your commander decks. There's not a commander deck that is 2 or more colors that doesn't really want these. Maybe not all of them all the time. Once you get up into like 4 and 5 colors, you're leaning toward whatever your primary colors are, but having 2 land types and the ability to enter untapped is just huge for so many reasons. Make sure that this set does not pass you by again in 2 or 3 months without grabbing the shocks that you need for all of your commander decks. And personally, I'm grabbing a couple extra just so I've got some for my commander decks in the future. That's my buy list for Edge of Eternities. Let me know what is on your buy list down in the comments, and let me know if you're picking up any of these cards and what commanders they're slotting into. This was a lot of cards, so I appreciate you watching. If you're still watching, hit that like and subscribe button. Other than that, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!